Rivalry weekend in college football is officially upon us. Nobody better to help us break it down than our good friend, our weekly guest on the Daily Crow, Jake Crain of Crain Company. Jake, what's going on, my man? The final weekend of the college football regular season. I try to tell people, man, over the summer, we start that 100-day countdown. I'm like, all right, savor it.
Here it comes.
Enjoy it, because once it gets here, it's over in a heartbeat, man. But we got a great weekend of games lined up, my friend. I appreciate you taking the time. How are you?
Of course. Again, I hope everybody had a fantastic Thanksgiving week so far, and this weekend everybody stay safe. Look, it's kind of bittersweet, right? As you bring it up, because there's so many great matchups. The playoff picture's really taking shape. You kind of know what has to happen. You either feel one way or another about your team's season, and we got these big rivalry games. But it also means it's the last week of the regular season. Man, damn. Which means we only got a couple more weeks. I mean, we got the bowl games and all that stuff, and that's great. But it's like, man, now I'm going to have to wait all over again for this. But, hey, college basketball, right? NFL, got a little bit going on. But no, man, I'm excited. It should be a hell of a week.
Jake, before we get into the slate of games, I got to ask you this. The college football playoff top 25 comes out. Florida State gets bumped out of the top 4 to number 5, Washington now at 4. Your thoughts on this? I feel like I know which way you're going to go, because I think I saw you talking about the Jordan Travis injury, how it affects Florida State. Agree or disagree with the committee bumping FSU out of the top 4?
Well, look, here's the beautiful part about it, and I say this on the show. Listen, until the last college football playoff ranking comes out, it's a reality TV show. Nothing. They contradict themselves all the time. They're going to do what excites half the people, pisses off the other half, to try and get as much ratings as possible for that show. Because here, what do I mean by that? They come out first one. Ohio State's ranked number 1. Why is Ohio State ranked number 1 over Georgia and Michigan? Oh, because it's about what you did this year. Oh, okay. Well, then how is Florida State ranked 4th? That doesn't make a lot of sense. Oh, you say head-to-head matters the most, right? Especially, as we get down to it. Oh, then why would you put Texas ahead of Oklahoma, right? Oh, what? Well, if you're undefeated, it doesn't matter. You're going to be up there. Well, then why would you put an 8-1 Tulane team over an undefeated Air Force team when Air Force was still undefeated? It's a TV show up until last week, and this one comes out. And listen, I think you can make a rational and logical argument why, when you look at 2 undefeated teams in Washington and Florida State, you could put Washington 1 ahead of Florida State, or have them jumping when we're talking about 2 undefeated teams. But then you look who's ahead. Oh, Ohio State and Michigan. Guess what? They play each other. One of them's got to lose. So if whoever wins that game, let's say Michigan wins it, say Georgia wins out, there's Georgia. There's Michigan, because you're playing the Little Giants in the Big Ten championship game from the Big Ten West. And then if Florida State and Washington win out, right? Well, Florida State slides right back in there. If Washington loses to Oregon, Florida State moves right back up. It's going to change, because it has to change. They just want to create chaos, so we'll talk about it up until the last week. It's a play. They're running, just like you watch plays get run on Saturday. This is a play they run. It works. But no, if we're talking about, though, at the last ranking, if an undefeated Florida State team gets left out because of an injury, that's asinine. That cannot happen. If that does happen, this will be the biggest problem that we've had in college football in a long time.
Jake, do you think there's a realistic path for an SEC team being left out of the college football playoff and there being no SEC teams in the field of 4?
Yes, I do. So obviously you'd have an undefeated Big Ten team, right? Let's just say Michigan, whatever. Let's say Florida State goes undefeated. They're going to be in my opinion. Let's say Washington wins out and they're undefeated. They're in. Okay, so there's 3 teams that are in there out of the 40. You got one more spot. Well, for this to happen, Alabama has to beat Georgia. Well, if Alabama beats number 1 Georgia and Texas wins out, they're both 12-1. And Washington's already beat Oregon, so that's done. You have a 12-1 Texas and a 12-1 Bama. Texas, I don't care who is playing well right now or who is playing better. If Bama played Texas on a neutral site, I'd take Bama. Just like I would have taken Bama over TCU last year when they didn't get in. TCU goes on to beat Michigan. Then obviously we know what happened in the Rocky Horror Picture Show national championship game last year against Georgia. But a 12-1 Texas and a 12-1 Bama, to see who gets in, it has to go to Texas, because head-to-head has to matter. The beginning of the season matters just as much at the end, and head-to-head, it's actually an easy out for the committee. It's an easy out. Your work's done for you. The 3 undefeated teams and the 2 one-loss teams that have a chance to get in, Texas and Bama, both won their conference, both 12-1. What's the common denominator? They actually played each other. Holy hell. It's unbelievably easy. Texas has to get in. That would be the way. That's the only way I could see it, really.
Jake, and if that were to happen, obviously the powers that be in the SEC, I would imagine they're pulling for Georgia to go out and go undefeated, so that guarantees the SEC
automatic
in there. But I mean, let's just hypothetically say that an SEC gets left out. You got 4 teams, no SEC teams. Do you think that would bring more or less intrigue to the college ball playoff? Because on one hand, it's brand new flavor, right? I mean, it's a bunch of teams that, it's not going to be the same old, okay, it's Georgia all over again. Like, it's not the same old song and dance. But on the other hand, you're leaving out a large portion of the college ball world that even cares, right? I mean, why would an SEC fan even care about the college ball playoff? So, like, what do you think in that standpoint, in that scenario? What's the intrigue level like in that?
Well, the entry level would be lower than if an SEC team was in there. It's simple math. It's the same reason why the SEC TV contract is the way it is. That's why the SEC attendance is the way it is. More people care down here, right? And it'd be a cool little cute story for everybody. Oh, look, the SEC's out. Oh, wow. How did Giselle not show up to the Victoria's Secret model show, and everybody's even more intrigued? No, they want to see Giselle. Are you kidding me? Like, at the end of the day, we know it means the slogan of the conference is it just means more for a reason. But I'm going to tell you what they're hoping for, Chris. They're hoping to get 2 teams in. They're hoping that, and somehow, right, you have one Big Ten team's going to get in, obviously. But if you have something crazy happen where they lost in the Big Ten championship game, and then all of a sudden Florida State loses, to Florida, and then, they're out of it. They'd be out of it with 1 loss anyway, I think, even with Jordan Travis. You hope that Oregon beats Washington, and Texas loses, so the Big 12's out, and Alabama beats Georgia, and all of a sudden, Bama and Georgia, here we go again, right? They'd love that. Oh, God. Bama and Georgia back in, that's like lemonade in the summertime, Chris. That's what they want. Double intrigue, right? What do they say on the campaign? We want to double the already tripled profits. It's the Mach brothers in here, man.
The dream scenario for sure. Jake, what the hell happened on the Plains over the weekend, and how does it change your outlook, if at all, on this weekend's Iron Bowl?
Well, I mean, it's whenever something like this happens, like obviously every game's different, but it's typically multiple things. It's not just one thing. A lot of people point to, oh, well, they must have overlooked them. Look, I watched that game and got a feel for that game. It was on one of the many multi-view screens I had up. And yeah, Auburn was very vanilla offensively, right? And I think they were looking ahead a little bit to Alabama, but dude, New Mexico State, I mean, if you watch that game, they were the better team. I mean, they dominated the game really from the beginning to the end. And, I was telling Auburn fans, because, everybody panics when this happens. It's like when Bama fans panicked when they lost to La Monroe. Oh, Nick Saban's an idiot. He's lost it, man. This is not saying that he's going to be Nick, but, this happens, right? It seems to bite a different team all the time. But this wasn't Alabama State, right? Like, coming in. This wasn't like, Bishop Sycamore coming in. I mean, New Mexico State's about to be 9-3. Like, if you know anything about Jerry Kill, like, he's legit. Now, the loss is still inexcusable, in my opinion. They are New Mexico State, and this is Auburn. But Auburn's got 1 4-star that starts on offense. If you want to really look at personnel and talent comparison, Auburn's better than New Mexico State, but it's not by, like, a ton. There's a reason USA Today last week put New Mexico State 2 spots above Auburn when it came to their overall rankings, and it turned out they were right. So I think it was multiple things. But see, here's the beautiful part about all this. We all know how crazy rivalries are. I mean, y'all are immersed in one yourself. It's an in-state rivalry with South Carolina and Clemson. We have the same thing down here with Auburn and Alabama. You somehow find a way to harness the Energico, like of Jordan-Hare Stadium, and pull this one out. People forget that game ever happened. Like it's like an Agent J just came and neuralized everybody, like they just forgot. So you always want an opportunity to bounce back, right? That's what you hope for, and Auburn has that opportunity now. Look, it's going to be tough. I mean, let's not lie, but we've seen what happens in Jordan-Hare. You got a chance to resurrect it, but it sucks. But it wasn't not the best thing that could have happened for Alabama, right? I think Nick Saban in private would tell you that. Obviously, it's not the best thing that could happen to Auburn, because if you can't get motivated to play the Iron Bowl anyway, then something's wrong with you. And optically, it looks bad. So, that's where I'm at on it.
Yeah, admittedly, Jake, back to what you said earlier, my mind immediately went to, and to your point, I'm not saying that Hugh Freeze at Auburn's going to play out this way, but it went to 2007, La Monroe. It didn't kill Nick Saban. So, I mean, it's not going to kill Hugh
No,
Freeze.
yeah.
It's embarrassing in the short term. If it can use as a lesson in the long term, I think they'll be fine. But
yeah,
I'm sure that was a tough message to preach down in the plains this week. I'd have to imagine.
Well, yeah, look, because everybody, again, especially just weird coming off the Arkansas game, how well Auburn played. A lot of people were high up there, but Auburn hasn't lost to a team like that, in a long time, especially at home. It just really doesn't happen. So it shell shocked a lot of people. You have a lot of people who don't like Hugh Freeze, come out of the woodwork, the same ones that were hiding, with Jody Foster in their panic room after the Arkansas game. And, and I always laugh. I was telling them, because most of them were worried about recruiting. That's the funny part. That they're not worried. They're like, yeah, man, damn, we lost New Mexico State this year. You're already bowl eligible. You weren't winning anything anyway this year. They're worried about recruiting. And I keep trying to tell them, I'm like, do y'all really think, what players want? That obviously NIL, money talks. They want you to get into the NFL, but they want to play. They want to play early, especially nowadays. Do you think it's better if Auburn was undefeated and had a bunch of freshmen and sophomores at that position? It would help them out in recruiting more than them being like, hey, we're Auburn. We're a legitimate place. You can come in here and play as a freshman. That's what they want. They know this New Mexico State game is not going to matter next year. So getting that message across got some of them off the cliff. But there's some people, man, they're panickers. Like you can't, they're panicking Skywalker.
And every fan base has got them for sure. Jake, South Carolina and Clemson Saturday night. Gamecocks and Tigers each have won 3 in a row. Carolina gets that hard-fought slugfest victory over the Kentucky Wildcats defense for dear life. Clemson, good win of their own against North Carolina. They've turned things around, it seems, since early in the season. Really got sparked by that Notre Dame win a couple weeks ago. Really interesting stat going in this one, Jake. Clemson, one of the worst in college football with 13 fumbles lost, 20 total turnovers lost. South Carolina's defense, for as bad as they've been this year, they forced 10 turnovers in their previous 3 games. Granted, 2 of those against Jacksonville State Vandy. But either way, they're trending the right way. How do you see this one playing out? Because you and I both know line of scrimmage matters. That's a big advantage, I think, to Clemson in this one. Carolina looking for back-to-back wins over the rival. Home game, night game at Willie B. Your thoughts on Carolina Clemson?
Well, I'm in love with South Carolina plus 7.5. And yes, Clemson would definitely win my shouldn't ate that can of corn award this year for as much as they fumble. Started against Duke at the beginning of the year where they just, could not hold on the ball.
They have to lead the country in fumbles inside the 5.
It's incredible. It's incredible. It's like they're cursed. Here's what I'll say. The advantages are obvious, right? I would honestly take more of South Carolina's skill players than I would Clemson's, to be honest with you, at most positions, including the important ones at quarterback, right? I love Shipley as a running back, but Clemson is better in the trenches. South Carolina's going to have to force a couple turnovers, but they can. Like, Clemson's skill players aren't just so much better than South Carolina's, or even on par with some of them out wide, that they're just going to run by them and, everything's going to be working. The only way that South Carolina will get a deficit on the outside, in my opinion, when they're on defense, is that the run game is killing them so bad that play action just opens it wide open. Safeties are having to guess. Nickels are having to guess. The corners are having to be out on islands the whole games because you're having to get guys to the box to just, for the love of God, try and stop the run. And it just messes with people's eyes over time. But the more this week goes on, and the more I think about it with Spencer Rattler, and Juice Wells announces he's coming back, biggest recruiting commitment of the year for South Carolina, so we can stay healthy. Rivalry game. Doesn't it feel like this game means a little bit more because both teams really hadn't done anything of significance all year? Like, this will be the one thing you can point back to and be like, yeah, man, we went 8-4, but we beat Carolina. It's like, South Carolina's like, oh man, yeah, we, it wasn't our best year. It was a losing season because y'all win this one. Y'all are what, 6-6?
So this is, I was going to say, Jake, this is the prove Jake Crain wrong bowl. You win.
Is it really proving me wrong though? If you
win
go
this
6-6,
one, you get to 6-6 instead of 5-7. I'm just
if it's that tight, if it's one game, I at least have to have like 1.5 game.
I was thinking
window. I mean, good God.
I was thinking in the back of my mind. I was like, I wonder if Jake's pulling for Clemson here so that he gets the 5-7 nailed this time around.
I'm pulling who I bet on for. Look, at the end of the day, nobody's sending me a check when South Carolina goes 5-7. I'm taking South Carolina.
I know you like that.
7.5.
Prove Jake Crain wrong, Bull.
Yeah. Listen, and if anybody comes out and starts talking trash that y'all went 6-6 after I said you went 5-7, I will fire you up live in front of a lot of people. But no, look, all joking aside, I feel like motivationally, Shane Beamer does a really good job of being able to connect with the guys. And that place is nuts, right? It's nuts. Williams-Rice is nuts. That counts for something. The longer this goes on, Chris, the longer this week goes on, Spencer Rattler, last chance, right? Got that Senior Bowl invite. Thanks for the memories. Loaded QB class. Needs to show up in a big game to maybe improve his draft stock. Maybe his last chance if he doesn't play in the bowl game, because it's going to be, if it is a bowl game, it's going to be like the Jelly and Jams Bowl or the Meineke Car Care Bowl or, 50andover.com Bowl or whatever it is. I think South Carolina wins this game, Chris. I'm telling you, man. I know they're bad up front on both sides of the ball, bad. But what is Danny O'Shea, from Little Giants say? He's like, man, look, man, I lost that race, 9 out of 10 times down Cherry Hill. But there's that one time. Like, I feel like it could be that one time. Not that South Carolina's, South Carolina, I know beat Clemson to death last year, but there's a huge deficit up front this year. But it would make Shane's stay over the offseason a lot comfier. To add a little leather to that chair of spikes that he's sitting on right now.
Certainly going to be a lot of fun. Jake, when you look at the rest of the SEC rivalries, what stands out to you? I mean, there's a lot of big spreads. I think also, too, it's fun to look at the spreads and see maybe some spreads are lower than you'd expect because it is rivalry weekend, and who knows what happens. We get going with the Egg Bowl on Thursday. We got Mizzou, Arkansas on Friday. That's an interesting spread. Only a touchdown there. Kentucky tries to salvage something out of their season against Louisville. LSU, A&M, Tennessee, Vandy. I'm just going through all of them. FSU, Florida, and then Georgia Tech, the greatest pillow fight one-sided in this side of the Mississippi. I don't know. That's just a trash rivalry in my opinion. But what stands out to you? My eyes go immediately to FSU, Florida, the battle of the quarterbacks.
Of course.
Florida State looks like in Gainesville. Billy Napier needs a good performance. Anyways, what are you most looking forward to in the SEC from these rivalry games?
Yeah, well, I mean, when you look around, I think the most in danger would obviously be Florida State going against Florida with the implications that has. You could say Alabama, Auburn, because that game's crazy. But not having either starting quarterback for each team makes that one even more interesting. I mean, it's interesting. It's the backup quarterback bowl if we're going to start naming games, which is unfortunate for both Mertz and Jordan Travis. Both guys were having really good years. Graham Mertz is one of the biggest surprises, in my opinion, in college football. And we know what Jordan is when he's out there and what he means to that team and his dual threat ability. But I tell you, man, Louisville, I know it's an in-state rivalry. They better not be looking ahead to Florida State with a backup quarterback. Because Kentucky, this is a Mark Stoops special, man. This is why, and we talk about this on the show, why he got one of the best contracts in college football, because he's able to do this at a place that just tries to get through it to basketball season. They better not be sleepwalking in this one, right? Because Ray Davis and that group, Miami ran all over Louisville. And if they let Kentucky run the ball like that, it really opens up that play action game that Liam Cohen and Devin Leary specialize in this year. So that one's interesting. Tennessee Vandy, it's going to be the murder on the Orient Express, except we know who did it. It was Tennessee's Josh Heupel in the library with a gun that fires all over the place, and Joe Milton, but somehow hit the person. I would say, looking around the SEC, the Arkansas-Missouri game you brought up, I want to see how this Arkansas team is emotionally after it was announced Sam Pittman's coming back, right? Is that a jolt of energy? Is that, hey, let's get back on it. Let's get some momentum going into next year. Let's all hold hands and hope together and get some positivity. But you're playing against a Missouri team that's really good. Not only really good, you're going for your 10th win, and these guys are coming back, most of them, like Brady Cook and Luther Burden. And they have some guys. I know Cody, feels like he's been playing college football even at Truman. It feels like he's in year 33, but they're building something over at Mizzou, and they want to keep building it, get to that 10-win mark. I tell you what, man, Chris, let me ask this. Am I the only one that sees like the similarities in Ole Miss and Missouri? And I'm like, like if you really look at the teams, opportunistic defense, both quarterbacks are coming back that are talented, that are dual threat guys. Their other best offensive players are coming back. Quinshawn Judkins at Ole Miss, the running back, and Luther Burden. They're both going for 10 wins, coming off years where there's some Ole Miss fans that were ready to get rid of Lane after the go to Auburn talks and losing to Mississippi State. There were some Missouri fans that were ready to get rid of Drink, but they gave him a 2-year extension. Seen a lot of parallels between those two teams. It's kind of wild. But, yeah, man, there's some interesting storylines across the league. There always is during this week, regardless of what's happening. So, no, I want to see if Georgia Tech can score any points against Georgia. I like the over at 60 in that game. They're not going to stop Georgia. Nobody's stopping Georgia. The most important person in that game for Georgia is the bus driver. But at the end of the day, yeah, there's some very interesting matchups.
Jake, the game takes place this week in Ohio State, Michigan, College Game Day on the scene. Your thoughts on that ball game? And with College Game Day in town, how many signs do you think will be dedicated to the sign stealing fiasco in Ann Arbor?
Well, I've heard from a little bird that they're boycotting it because they got apparently like bar stools going up there. You've got Big Noon kickoff. They're just going to go to the other ones. I think they're just going to tell them to stuff it. And they should. Because, look, we all know ESPN's got a vested interest in the Big Ten doing bad. Like, everybody knows that. You don't have to be some genius to know that. ESPN's with the SEC and Fox is with the Big Ten. That's what we're headed for. 2 super conferences, right? ESPN versus Fox. And then they'll come together, the Battle of the Klingons for interstellar domination. But look, somebody will do something, right? Somebody will do something. Somebody will have a sign that says Connor Stallion stole my other sign, whatever, something lame like that. But when I look at this game, I just don't trust Kyle McCord. I just don't. JJ's been in this game, right? I know who Michigan is. I've watched these core players play for the last 2 years. Ohio State's really good on defense. But at the end of the day, I think Michigan, who I describe as smushy, but in the good way, they do the smushing. I just don't think Kyle can make, and I love Marvin Harrison Jr. and Egbuka and Cade Stover and the backs they have. But Michigan's really good on defense, and I don't think Kyle's going to be able to push the ball down the field, number one, in this weather. And number two, I don't know how much Ryan Day want him to push the ball down the field because this is one of those games that will be decided by 2 to 3 plays. It will be. It's just how it's going to go. I just trust J.J. McCarthy at home, this team in the elements. I love if you can buy down, and it may get down to 2.5. I don't know. But if you have to buy down Michigan minus 2.5, it is a great bet. Great bet. I think they may win by double digits.
Jake Crain of Crain Company. Jake, one last thing, and I'll get you out of here. Outside of Auburn, Alabama, favorite rivalry and most underrated rivalry, in your opinion?
I mean, it has to be Ohio State, Michigan, right? I would say, Army Navy's close. Army Navy's close just because of what it means. But I would say my most underrated rivalry. God, that's a good one. Give me. Let me think. Let me go. I'm gonna say Oregon State. Right? No, I think Oregon's gonna kill them this year, and I know it's Oregon State's being left at the dance. They're like the fat freckled kid, just getting left at the dance while Oregon goes to the Big Ten. But any rivalry that's called the Civil War. Oh, also there's another one. Actually, this is my answer. I do have the ability to change my answer. Correct, Chris? That's cool?
Absolutely, yeah.
Most underrated, Farmageddon. Iowa State, Kansas State. Been being played since 1917. Yeah, that's right. Farmageddon. Just because the name is so dope. By the way, fun fact for all you college football junkies out there like me, do you know when Miami, Ohio played Miami, Florida earlier in the year, what that game's actually called?
Enlighten me.
The Confusion Bowl. That's actually a real thing. That's 100% real thing. You can check it out. But I'd go Farmageddon, the most underrated.
Jake, we got about a minute. Last thing. You were at South Alabama, right? That's where you coached?
Yes.
Who was South Alabama's rival? Your favorite
Troy.
from coaching in the rivalry?
Yeah, we beat them back to back to win the belt, and we were like a brand new program, so we just went in the locker room and just blared Drake's back to back, like as loud as humanly possible. And they've been there forever. Stadium was nicer than ours. We're playing at Ladd. Like we beat them twice in a row. That was a lot of fun. Always have the belt, baby.
Different type of energy getting ready for a rivalry game like that. Versus
oh yeah, yeah. Like it's just, it's like Dion said, it's personal.
Jake, I appreciate you taking the time, man. This is always a ton of fun. Have a happy rivalry weekend. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. And before you get out of here, let the folks know who's on the show this weekend for the Pick'em show.
Dude, we have Steve Dace, Michigan grad. He was the executive producer of Nefarious, that movie that came out that did really well. He's a big Michigan guy, but big college football fan. Actually really knows his stuff. Does a really good job. Best-selling author as well. We've got, Chris Marler on too, our buddy from Saturday Down South, big Bammer, but still love him. No, man, it's if you watch your sports media shows, go to YouTube. It's Crain Company, CRAIN and Company, Apple Podcast, Spotify, all that jazz. You can find us there. But happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Chris, I always love coming on with you, man. I enjoy chopping it up with you and being able to see you at media day and stuff like that. Just hope everybody out there is safe, enjoys their football watching, and enjoy that nap too. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Don't eat breakfast on Thanksgiving. Wait, it's worth it, man.
Jake, you're the man. We'll do it again next week.
All right, buddy. See ya.